the OutSystems platform. So if anybody has any questions about, well, OutSystems doesn't do X, Y, and Z, typically our answer is go to Integration Studio and add it yourself. So I'll show you a quick sample of what Integration Studio is or what it can do. Having logged on to a specific server, if I download a component, we'll just open one up like Salesforce. This one is a Salesforce connector that has C# and Java-based APIs. So it's making RESTful service calls using the APIs that have been exposed. And you can see all the actions as well as any structures, which are basically complex data types that you see here. The actions are created for us within our code. So if I open that up within C# or Java editor, in this case it would be a C# editor, I can do my implementation and then build this code out and add the resources, which you can see here. I'll show you the C# resources since we're in a .NET environment. All the resources will have been added into the server for me to then reuse. Momentarily, it's going to open up my Visual Studio editor, but again, this could easily be Java as well. So if I were to open up, say, Bootcamp FE1, which is the server where you guys will be logged on, and click the reference tool, I can see a series of different extensions as well as other modules that I could then reuse. So OutSystems does supply reusability. For instance, anything with this icon, the XIF, is actually coming from the extensions. It's actually coming from Integration Studio that somebody wrote. So you can see a method here called log record, authentication. All this has been added so that if I simply reference it, pull it into my IDE, I can then reuse those actions, simply like clicking that logic, and there are my authentication actions that I just referenced. We'll be doing a little bit more of this down the road. I just want to give you an idea of some of the OutSystems capabilities right out of the box. The code, it makes it compatible with OutSystems, but the methods that I just created or that were created for that Salesforce connector are here. So then I could simply come in and add my own implementation as I like with any type of code structure that I want to, provided that it conforms to the interface that was generated for me. All right, any questions so far, guys?
So these extensions are right now on, are they on our, the training domain you just showed, and what if we want to import them into our own implementation?
This particular extension is not on our server that we'll be working on. I will be adding other extensions that you can then reuse, and if you have an interest in adding your own extensions, I welcome that and I encourage it. I will give you access to create your own extensions to further enrich your own experience.
Sorry, let me rephrase. What if we want to actually move them to our platform? Are they widely available, or are they only on this training domain that you gave us?
No, they are available. You can download them and use them on your own. In fact, that is also something I'll be encouraging. Any work that you do on this server, please download it. If you have your own server set up, is this Vinod?
Yes.
Yeah, you please download your extensions, download your eSpaces, so that you can install them locally.
Okay.
Excuse me. All right. Well, let's dive in really quickly to Service Studio. I want to give you a quick tour of the kind of components that you'll be using and working with. Okay? There are 4 different layers. OutSystems has 4 layers of code, if you will, or of applications. It starts with data. You end up into logic as well as interfaces and processes. All right, the data tab allows you to create entities as well as static entities. The difference between the two, entities are manageable out in the browser, where if you create an entity, it becomes a database table that you can manage, change the data via the database calls with, for instance, these entity actions, as well as queries. Static entities are just that. They are very similar to enumerations. Even though they create database tables, they are not manageable. You cannot change them out into the browser. These are meant to be changed only in the designer. By the way, we have entity diagrams allowing you to see how your data stacks up. So if you're creating different entities, I highly recommend you create a diagram as well, so you can see exactly how your data works together. Most often, students will get stuck simply because they don't understand how their data works. So as you build out your eSpaces, create a diagram so that you understand the relationships between all of your entities. By the way, when we publish, these are creating database tables out into our database. So we're working on a .NET SQL Server stack currently. Excuse me. All right, Logic tab allows me to create actions as well as references to other actions like extensions or actions within another eSpace. I can also create and consume web services. I can also reuse roles as well as exceptions. I can add my own user exceptions and throw them if I need to, potentially do my own error handling if I need to as well. Some of these are created by default, database exceptions, security exceptions, and what you can do is anytime you have pages that will do any type of like database calls and really more like database changes, you will want to add your own exception handling alternate flow. And that is something that we will talk about in more detail. As we add actions, when we publish, these create basically compiled code in C# or Java. In our case, it's C#. So the end result is compiled code that's being created for us out onto our server. In this case, it's that Bootcamp FE1 server. All right, Interface tab allows me to create web pages as well as web blocks, which are similar to user controls, in addition to the ability to create emails that are designed emails. So I can actually model a visual email with all the data that I need to, just like I would model a web block or a web page. Right? I can do something very visually, creating all of the necessary front-end components with some styling capabilities with CSS, so that it has a similar look and feel as my web pages. All right. The end result, importing images as well as themes. And by the way, we will be dealing with themes which are CSS-based themes. These will create CSS files when we publish, just like the screens that you see will create web pages. Web blocks will create controls that are reusable, as well as emails will be sent as well or created programmatically. All of that is being done when we publish our eSpaces. All right, lastly, processes. Notice there are two folders here. One is called timers and one is called processes. A timer is simply a batch job. If we're creating something that needs to run at midnight, or maybe we need something to run whenever we publish, basically after we publish, asynchronously, that is a great option to use a timer. It actually works extremely well. Whenever we bootstrap data for the first time, we will create a timer to do that. Also, if we have time, we'll spend a little bit of time on processes. Processes, in this case, these are workflow-based activities that might require some type or enforce a human activity, such as an approval or some type of thing that requires basically a task for a specific role. Okay, notice the roles here we have registered or to-do user. If the to-do user, in this case, has to do something, we might give them a human activity, send them to a specific page. In this case, we might want to set a specific task, or we could just set it to null. And this would navigate them to that page in order to accomplish whatever task we designed for them. There's a lot more to this. So what I would ask, if you have questions about the processes, let me know so that we can explore that in more detail. Some of the other components, just so you know, when you create actions within this logic, these are what we call user actions. So they are reusable throughout your interface as well as other logic, within other actions. All right, the actions within our entities are called entity actions, and these you won't be able to change. If you want to create APIs around them and add actions within user actions, that's fine. But just know that typically an entity you create has 6 actions assigned to it. In addition, the actions assigned to a page, what we call screen actions. Whenever you load data for the first time in say, an edit page, if you have a preparation, there is this is similar to a page load event. Whenever you basically raising an event from a button click, this would be another what we call screen action. All right, these are not reusable from page to page. If you want to reuse something, then you would create a user action to do it. All right, did somebody have a question?
Yeah, I do. How is this user action in the logic page different from the actions you talked about in the processes page, or the processes section, rather?
That's a very good question. The user actions here are synchronous. In other words, whenever you fire them, you're basically firing off a series of logic, and you're expecting a result. You might have an input parameter. You might have an output parameter. The end result is you're running some logic, and there's nothing that is waiting for, you're not waiting for somebody else to do some type of activity in order for you to get your result back. It's the equivalent of you calling a C# method. You call a C# method, you're going to send some input and get some output. Whereas processes are, quite honestly, more complex in nature. They are more similar to what you might think of as a BPM tool, like Windows Workflow or Lombardi.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. All right, guys, I've basically taken quite a bit of time in showing you a little bit of the lay of the land. Does anybody have any other questions at this time? All right. I will take that as a no. What I'd like to do at this time is basically if you have not already been able to get started, or at least open up Service Studio and log into the server, please let me know. Otherwise, go ahead and begin with the first set of activities, which would be, if you have not already done Chapter 3, go ahead and begin on Chapter 3. And what you'll do is you'll create a new web application where you'll be doing your work. When you do that, make sure you save your work appropriately with your append, basically, whatever your work is, append your initials at the end. That way we don't have any naming conflicts with the applications. Okay? As you create your new eSpaces, you're going to publish them. I recommend you publish them often. Whenever you finish work, go ahead and publish. And once the upload for a publish is complete, basically you can continue working even though the publish is continuing on the server. Let me show you what I mean. So I will create a new application. And by creating a new eSpace module, it has created the necessary flows and data that is needed for me to have a web page or a working web page. So if I just add some text in here and then publish as a simple hello world, you notice that the publish at the very first it's saying uploading. As it's uploading, you won't be able to do anything. But once the upload is complete, I can now do some more work on my browser, on my IDE, even as it's compiling and deploying. Now, the changes that I make once the upload is complete will not be reflected until I publish again. But I just want to make you aware, you don't have to stop. You can continue working as you are basically compiling, as it is being compiled, because the compilation and the publish work is all being done on that server. Okay? All right, so does everybody have any confusion about what they need to begin on? Sam, I know that you and I have a little bit more work to do, but anybody else?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, in that case, please begin. And again, I'm here for any and all questions that you have. If you have already finished Chapter 3, please go on to Chapter 4. Otherwise, just ping me and let me know that you're working on Chapter 3 through the chat, okay?
So, quick question. Where exactly are the details for Chapter 4? Are they...
By the way, has everybody already received the, there are two sets of materials. There is a preparation workbook, which I assume most of you have already received. And then there's also a classroom workbook. Has anybody not received the classroom workbook?
Yeah, this is Vinod. I definitely don't have that.
You do not have it, okay.
I don't think I have it either.
All right, let me make sure that you have that. I have I've already added that to Dropbox just in case. I sometimes forget to send that out. Let me see if I can. I'm going to put this in the chat. Please let me know if you have any issues opening that. Does everybody already have the preparation, or should I also send that one? Okay. Okay, was everybody able to access the classroom workbook? Or better yet, anybody not able to access the classroom workbook? Please also check the chat. I added another workbook for the preparation in case you have not already done that. And as I mentioned already, if you have not already done so, please go ahead and start in Chapter 3 and then move right on to Chapter 4, okay? Okay, good. Tori just asked the question, are we doing this on your server, or are you doing this on the bootcamp server? Please log on to this bootcamp server using Service Studio. This is where you'll be publishing all of your work. The username here is your first initial last name, and the password is Outsystems. Okay. Sam, how are we doing?
I'm really behind. I'm not getting
No,
that.
were you? I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm a little bit behind. I'm not getting the access that I need. That's why.
Oh, you're still not able to install Service Studio?
No, I can install it.
That's fine if you're a little bit behind. I'll help you to catch up.
Okay.
What I recommend is just take a look at the videos from Chapter 3, and if it's causing you confusion, then we'll work together, or you can back up even to Chapter 2.
Okay. Let me go ahead and start with that then. A lot of the links that you sent to me, I'm being blocked from getting access to it. Like the that workbook, that class workbook that you just sent, I can't get in.
All right, let me see. Do you have a personal email address?
Yeah, I sent it to you earlier. Do you still need it again?
I might have it. Let me just check. Yeah, I have yours. Let me try to send this information directly to you via email.
Okay, thank you.
Simply because your American Express email was blocking all of my emails over the weekend. So I'll forward that to you. I'll forward the links to you or those files directly to you, and we'll see if we can get through that way.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Sam, were you able to receive the email in your personal, or has it not come yet?
Give me a second. Let me check it right now.
Okay, because American Express is still blocking me. Guys, one other thing to note for everybody, this will be beneficial for you in the long run. If you have a tablet or a second monitor, I recommend you use it. Especially as you are taking notes and you want to rewatch videos, or you want to have the source reference material, such as the workbook PDFs. You can have those on your alternate screens, and you don't really have to tab back and forth. So if you haven't necessarily got it from day one, break it out for day two. I highly recommend it. Guys, I brought up the user list that I already added. In case you do not know what your username is, I went ahead and brought that list up in case you're still struggling to log in. So if anybody is still having trouble logging in, please let me know.
I do have one question.
Okay.
For every day, hello. My service today is starting every 5 minutes.
It's your service studio is restarting?
Yeah, no. I'm trying to connect the environment, but it is not responding.
What version of Service Studio do you have currently?
Currently, I'm using 8.0.1. 8.0.1.7.
1.7. So that shouldn't be the issue.
Sorry, it's 0.1.8.
All right, that's not the problem then. You have not yet been able to connect to anything, or what is your issue now?
While I'm giving the credentials, it's saying it's not responding.
So you're not able to log on at all?
Yeah.
Is this Sudhakar?
Yeah.
I may have your name wrong.
Yes, it's Sudhakar.
Have you tried this login? Because I might have written down. I might have put your login name incorrectly. Can you try that username?
I'm trying.
Sunil, you were able to connect, okay? Sudhakar, did I get your name right, or is that incorrect? Okay. Sunil, okay, thank you. Okay, perfect. Hey, Sam,
Yes.
are you still unable to connect to the Google Doc?
No, I just need to register, so I'm in now.
Yeah, you might. I was about to say you might want to go ahead and register your email account with Google Docs.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alex, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I was trying to publish, but it tells me that I think it's related to the reference that we added for the user, because it gives me all kinds of things around unknown user login action and unknown user management / edit my info issues.
It's probably my fault. Let me double check something. You said those were user actions that where the publish errors were coming from?
Yeah, it says unknown user login action, and then required property value, unknown user management / edit my info,
Okay.
and unknown user management change password.
I tell you what, open up the reference tool.
Okay.
I just changed your credentials for everybody. So if you open up references, you should see users in there. You should be able to get all of that information.
I don't see users. Ah, okay. I got to show all.
Show all. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. That's my fault.
All right, we're almost there. Now it just says you're not allowed to use the entity group.
Not allowed to use the entity group. Let me. Hang on 1 second, Alex.
Okay.
Okay. The entity you might need, there's a couple of other entities within the reference action, Alex,
Okay.
in the users. Which entity is it saying it needs?
It says that I'm not allowed to use the entity group under users.
Hello? Interesting, okay. Let me give you a bit more access.
Can I show him something real quick? Or is this just right here? Yeah. Just get it off the list.
Alex, I'm trying to understand the e-space that you had and you published. Does that already have a reference to group?
I don't think so. It doesn't say it anywhere. I just created a new one and was was doing the 4.2 right now, and I published. So there's nothing in that talks about groups.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't remember anything. You remember you really needing access to groups. This one, purchase management?
Yes, the AWS one, yeah.
How did you get the group in there? Now, technically, you should not have access to group. Oh, that's in system, that's why. Sorry, Alex, I won't be doing a lot of publishes to overwrite what you've already done, but I wanted to check that. You definitely are not going to need the group stuff. I'm not sure how that got created for you, but in the meantime, I'll give see if I can give a little more access so that this issue doesn't come up again.
Okay, cool.
If you download your latest, you should be able to see it now. You should be able to get it now.
All right, all good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm going to drop something off at the office here. I will be right back. Yeah.
In this lesson, we'll see how you can define your database model in Service Studio, and we'll do it in a lot more detail than what we did in the previous videos. So let me start by creating a new application. It will actually be a purchase management application. Purchase management. Let me hit save and create a new eSpace module. To start with, we're going to create the database, so right click, add entity, and let me add the client entity. And an entity in the Agile platform, as we've said before, is a table in the database, and an entity attribute is a column in that table. So let me just right click and add a few attributes. So the name, right click, address, new one, the email, and finally the phone number. Okay, let's set some of the attributes as mandatory. Just select the as mandatory property of the name to yes, And let's do the same thing for the address and for the email. You can also, by the way, double click the property label and it will set the value to yes for you. The is mandatory property is actually metadata used by the platform. Validation in a later lesson, but what I want to make clear is that a constraint in the database will not be created for these. All right, so let's proceed and take a look at the client entity. Actually, I'm going to create an entity diagram and drag and drop the entity to that diagram. And notice there's one of the fields is marked red, and this means it's a primary key. And the concept is the same as in a relational in relational database management systems, but the terminology of Service Studio. In the terminology of Service Studio, a primary key is called an identifier. So the term identifier will identify that a field is a primary key. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the data types real quick. The name is text, and the address is also text, as well as the email. No, actually the email is not text. Interesting, right? We'll take a look at, let's take a look at the Agile platform help, and you will see, and you can browse this later, just Google for Outsystems, and you will find the fields and what they really are in. So basically, all right, so let's create another entity, the product entity. Product entity, and I'll start by just dragging and dropping this one here real quick, and let's add a few fields to the database, like what makes sense, the name. What else have we got in a product? A description. Price, of course. Now notice how Service Studio will automatically, let me just type enter, and notice how Service Studio automatically guess type, and let's say quantity in stock, and Service Studio also guessed that this is an integer. And now let's set a few fields as mandatory, the ones that make sense, like the name, double click, and the quantity in stock and the price. So start with the price is of course mandatory, and the quantity in stock is also mandatory. In this lesson, we'll see how you can define your database model in Service Studio, and we'll do it in this lesson, we'll see how to use foreign keys to make one-to-many relationships. Let's start by creating a purchase entity here in our purchase management application. So right-click, purchase entity. There you go. And we'll add two attributes to it. Let me first drag and drop it to the data model. And let me add one attribute right there, which will be the submit date. And I'll also add another attribute, and I will label it client ID. And now notice the data model before I press enter. So I'll press enter now, and there was a relationship created between client and purchase. So this is the way you define a foreign key. And a foreign key in Service Studio is important because this is the way you define relationships. The way you define, in other words, in Service Studio, relationships are created by defining a reference attribute, and the reference attribute is an attribute that has the data type defined as identifier of some entity. This means that if you look here at the data type of client, it will be it will be client identifier. And this is important because Agile platform language is a strongly typed language. And the fact that Service Studio creates a data type for each of the entity's identifiers enforces how strongly typed the language is. Now, let's proceed to set a default value to the attribute submit date. This is something we didn't do before, and this is done by setting the default value property. I want it to be the current date, the actually today's date. Whenever a record is created in the database, this field submit date will be set automatically with the return of that function. Finally, we're going to set the client ID as mandatory. And I need to set this as mandatory. And when this property is set in a foreign key, only valid values will be allowed. So it means that if you try to create a row, it's important because there is actually a constraint on top of this column. So if you remember the previous lesson, we discussed that these were used.
Any of these app modules, any like entities or actions, if they are public, then they are reusable. So if I were to
we'll link this to
make this a public one,
right-click.
then I could potentially access this from another module
The
once I
edit
publish,
page. Purchase.
simply by
edit
opening
page.
up this reference tool.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Now let's go to the edit
If I
page
publish
and
this
start
change,
working on it.
Alex, I'm not going to overwrite your change,
And
I
we'll
promise.
leave-
I'm going to go ahead and close this. If I take something and make it public, make a flow public, or logic public, or whatever,
Everything I need to create as a public, right?
yes, anything you need to reuse from another module, simply make it public. And then you can
Okay.
access it from the references tool.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And one more question. I want to use the file uploads. I am able to create the file upload data type, but I am not able to see in the view page. If I try to upload the one file by using but in the edit page.
Hello. So you're doing trying to upload a file from a browser window?
Yeah, from my local computer, I want to upload one file, and that is done in the edit page. But I want to see the same. What is the file I have uploaded in the view page? So if I click on the view page on the PDF or any text file, that should
This will
open
be
in
used
a
to
new
both
window or like anything.
change
That
and
should,
create.
it has to show what I have uploaded
Right.
in
You
the
can
edit
create a
page.
new purchase. New.
Can I clear?
Let's go back. So there's only.
I think so. Let me make sure I understand. You're trying to see the file that you've uploaded from
Yeah.
another window. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
In the view page, yeah. I will upload one file in the edit page. I want to see the
So if I were to let's walk through a scenario. If I were to add a upload onto a page
Yeah.
that I choose
yeah.
upload a file, and add an action to do that upload. So we'll add an action here, which will
Okay.
basically open up that file, whatever we want to use, right? So essentially in here we might just add an assignment. You see this widget? It has the content of the file that you were just selecting. So what
Okay.
is it about that content that you want to use?
Sorry?
So the file that you select, it does a conversion into binary data. So if
Okay.
it's an image or if it's Excel, whatever, you can still use that oftentimes we will do an upload of some sort so that we can load data via bootstrapping, like Excel file as an example.
Purchase
Let
with
me show you
client, client with or without purchase, purchase with or without client, and then both purchase
This is
and
known as
client.
a
This would do a
bootstrap.
cross join.
Yeah,
And this would be a right
creating the entities
join,
through
and
the
this would be a
Excel sheet.
left join.
Right.
But
So
you can
what is
play
being
around with
done
this
here
to figure out
this action
how this works.
loading the data.
Let's go back to
from
the
Excel. In this
page.
case, it's from that
Let's go back to the
resource.
page, to the main
That
flow,
file content is still binary
purchase
data.
list.
Do you see that?
and
Yeah,
add a new link below the
And then
table
it is
records
basically
where you can
running
create a
through. In
new
this
purchase.
Case,
New
it's basically
Let's go
treating
back
each
to the
record
page, to
just
the
like
main
another
flow,
record from
to the purchase
the
list,
structure that's been added.
and
Excel structure
add a new link
here.
below the table records
Same set of data
where you
types
can
as what
create a
see
new
in the end.
purchase. Add a new
Now,
link
if I want
below
to
the table records.
re-download this,
Let's go
then
back
it's
to the page, to the main
then
flow,
it's very easy to
to
do
the
so
purchase
with
list,
potentially another action.
and add a new
by,
link below
doing,
the table
some type
records
of sort. Let me
where you can create
load
a new
page.
purchase,
So I'll add a preparation here.
new purchase. We'll link this
Now we're
to
going to select
right click
all the products.
the edit page, purchase edit
Then
page.
just do a
Okay,
a record list to Excel. This is just a conversion from the
edit page,
products. So we'll just
purchase
select
edit page.
that record list.
Okay, we'll link this to
Select
right
all,
click
and then just do a download of that file content.
the edit page,
Then I can
purchase edit
basically it will
page.
do another download again.
Okay, there you go.
In this case,
Now
on the
let's go to
preparation
the edit
when the
page and
loads.
start working on it. And we'll
I'm not
need, this
sure
will
that I
be used to
answered your
both
question.
change and create
Is there something specific you were
purchases.
trying to
So
accomplish?
let's add an input per.
Okay, so Sunil, do me a favor. Yes. Yes. Yeah, he typed to me. He said not exactly. So I don't think I've answered his question exactly. So Sunil, just probably maybe want to type out your.
yeah, Tori. Yeah, exactly what we are doing in currently.
I see. I see. There is a little bit more involved if you're just showing a link or showing a page, but it also, instead of just downloading, what you would end up doing is linking to another page that is basically just loading that data or loading that file onto with that specific data type. I'd like to add that to my parking lot, if that's okay. Ah, I see. Yeah, in fact, that is actually, yeah, the download is actually is very simple because of the data. As an example, if we had an additional entity with a specific data type, that it might be, let's add another attribute. This attribute would be of type binary data. This could, if you have that, then it's very simple to select that and do a download of whatever that data is, using the same type of scenario that we have here. In this case, we wouldn't necessarily do an Excel conversion. It might be just a maybe get product, or in this case, so to get that specific entity, in order to download that file content, let's see here, which would be that attribute 1, and we just named the file. That's sort of, in general, that's the kind of thing that you're trying to accomplish, I believe. You click a link, you select it based on maybe some identifier. And then based on that data, or based on whatever selection criteria, you just do the download, which will download that file. And then, of course, when you see it in a browser window, it would just open it up as a new file download. It would pop up at the bottom in Chrome or at the top in Firefox. So that is one example. That's one simple scenario that we can show. There is a PDF conversion tool that's out on the web that we can that I can show you guys as well. Sure, be glad to.
Parameter. We'll do both. Now let's go to the edit page and start working on it. And this will be used to both change and create purchases. So let's add an input parameter with a purchase ID. Purchases. So let's add an input parameter with a purchase ID. And let's add a preparation, and in the preparation we'll query, like we did before, the purchase by ID, a purchase ID, and let's add a preparation, and in the preparation we'll query, like we did before, the purchase by ID. Let's drag and drop. In the preparation we'll query, like we did before, the purchase by ID. Let's drag and drop. Let's set the title first, and we need a different title if you're creating or changing records. You may want to have different titles. This is actually consistent to what we did in the previous videos. So what I'm doing now is setting the condition of the if. So if the purchase ID is null, then the title, I'll fill in the true branch of the if, the title is going to be new purchase. If not, I will be editing purchase, and then I'll just put the number in front of it with an expression. Let me double click the expression and then go and select the purchase ID, which we will use as the number of the purchase. Actually, let me go back to the purchase list and show like the purchase ID, which we will use as the number of the purchase. Actually, let me go back to the purchase list and show the number of the purchase in the list, because by default the ID will not be visible in the table, but in this particular case we want it to be visible, and all we have to do is drag and drop it to the table. Okay, going back to the edit page, the title is done. Let me just set an example here so you can get this a little bit more. What you see is what you get. And let's create the form for the edit record to create or edit a new purchase. So drag and drop the edit record and go and get the purchase, drag and drop into the edit record that we have it, and now we will need to add a preparation. Actually, we already have the preparation. We need now to bind the output of the query that we have it, and now and go and get the purchase, drag and drop into the edit record that we have it, and now we will need to add a preparation. Actually, we already have the preparation. preparation, we need now to, to bind the output of the query. Go and get the purchase, drag and drop into the edit record that we have it, and now we will need to add a preparation. Actually, we already have the preparation. We need now to, to bind the output of the query have the preparation. We
Quick
need
question.
now
Are
to,
the credentials for the academy different than
to
the main
bind
website?
the output of the query.
They are, you talking about the academy.outsystems.net?
Yeah.
Or academy?
Yeah, to download the
Now
bootstrap
to,
data. Yep.
to
Yeah, that's,
bind the output of the
password,
query.
Or excuse me, the login is trainee, and the password is OutSystems1.
That we have it, and now we
You're
will
welcome.
need to add a preparation. Actually, we already have the preparation. We need now to, to bind the output of the query. That page. The title is done. Let me just set an example here so you can get this a little bit more. What you see is what you get. And let's create the form for the edit record to create or edit a new purchase. So drag and drop the edit record and go and get the purchase. Drag and drop into the edit record that we have it, and now we will need to add a preparation. Actually, we already have the preparation. We need now to, to bind the output of the query have the preparation. We need now to, to bind the output of the query to the source record of the edit record. And that's it. Let me just take a look at, yeah, we need of course a button. I was just taking a look at the error there. We need a button to save. Of course. Save. And double click to create the action, and this will be as we did before. And double click to create the action, and this will be as we did before, to use the create or update entity action to create or update a purchase based on the edit record. And we want to go back after creating the purchase to the list page. The action to create or update a purchase based on the edit record. And we want to go back after creating the purchase to the list page. Just go back to the purchase edit. There seems to be a problem here that is not allowing me to publish. There's a required property value missing. Let me double click. And we need to set a parameter. So the problem is in the link and in the purchase ID property. So basically, when I created the purchase ID, I created the parameter as mandatory. In fact, we don't need it to be mandatory. With that, we just remove the error, and I want to link the ID to the edit page so I can actually see if everything is working. So let me link the mandatory. With that, we just remove the error, and I want to link the ID to the edit page so I can actually see if everything is working. So let me link the ID. When the user clicks the ID, basically it will go to the purchase edit, and in this case we will have to supply a parameter, and it will be from the purchase table, the current record, purchase. And in this case, we will have to supply a parameter, and it will be from the purchase table, the current record. We will have to supply a parameter, and so I can actually see if everything is working. So let me link the ID. When the user clicks the ID, basically it will go to the purchase edit, And in this case, we will have to supply a parameter, and it will be from the purchase table, the current record, purchase ID. And actually, let me just rename the header here to purchase number, because we don't want our users to understand the database in order to use our application. So let me just publish this and let's see this in action. You will notice that list, there you go. Let's add the table records to display the data. Now, database. So we have the prep. I want to talk about ID, so the service only back to the page with a purchase ID. Purchases, so let's add an ID which we will use with an expression. If not, I will is null, then the title, I'll fill it in the previous videos. Records, you may want to have different titles. This is actually consistent to what we did in the previous videos. So what I'm doing now is setting the condition of the if. So if the purchase ID is null, then the title, consistent to what we did in the previous videos. So what I'm doing now is setting the condition of the if. So if the purchase ID is null, then the title, I'll fill in the true branch of the if, the title is In this lesson, we'll see how to model many-to-many relationships and display them on the screen. We'll extend the purchase management application to allow the input of multiple purchased products. So let me open the entity diagram right now. And what we want is to add a relationship between product and purchase, so we can have in the database the purchased products. This would be a many-to-many relationship that we will model with a third entity that, or with a new entity that we're going to add, that will be purchased product. Let me name it purchased product. Purchased product, that we have it, and let me just drag and drop.
Doing a redirect from a web page to a PDF file as an example, if they're stored on a file system, then you would most likely use some type of redirect. You might use even network file system to place that file somewhere. But the redirect would be utilizing the OutSystems component. I'll show you.
The unit price that we get from this query.
The main flow, you can use
Product.
External site, which you can then navigate to any URL. Any external URL such as yahoo.com, or any external URL such as a file that you want to show in the browser,
okay.
Window.
All right.
You can even use a pop-up editor, have it navigate to that file as well.
Is that what can be say for AWS S3 or the Azure's storage if you want to use the cloud option?
You should have, for database storage, is that what you're saying?
Now for file storage, if you want to actually upload files to S3 instead of local storage.
Yeah, you should have, if you have, you're using Amazon Web Services for your file storage. Yeah, as long as you have access to it, and again, you may have
To this,
access
we need to
it in
add
a certain way
the
using,
record
as
to the
I mentioned,
database
the network file system component.
using an entity action that will
But
allow us to
you then
create
should be
a
able
purchase
to pull them
product
in. The
based
component
on
I
the
mentioned,
variable
the
from the
HTML
edit
to
record.
PDF, it
If you
will
remember,
do
we don't have
manipulation from HTML to PDF. However, I would not trust it to do very complex reports or anything like that. Just so you know.
Okay.
And I recommend when you get a minute, open up the network file system example eSpace. It's currently in independent projects or independent modules application. And just take a look at what it does. I mean, it's using extensions from C# and Java, in our case C#, to do most of the file system type stuff that you're used to doing in code. And each one of those will have parameters that you can pass in your impersonated username and password.
So while you're talking about components, a quick question. Do you plan to cover how we could actually download a component from, say,
record to the database using an entity action that will allow us to create a
I can. It is actually relatively simple.
Okay.
But I have no
purchase
problem
product
Okay.
based on the variable
doing that.
from the edit record.
Vanilla?
If you remember, we don't have products in the database, so I'll just bootstrap the database with a few products. Create product based on the variable from the edit
Here,
record.
I'll show you very quickly.
If you remember, we don't
how I
have
do
products in the database, so I'll just bootstrap the database with a few
Within
products.
our service center, this is our administration console.
Okay.
We have the concept of 3 different file types. One is the eSpace, which is a module or an OML file. One is an extension that you potentially use Integration Studio to wrap code, and then add that as a component within the server. And then another is a solution, which is basically a solution pack that can contain multiple eSpaces as well as extensions.
Create bootstrap action from Excel
What I've done
based on the variable from the edit
is I
record.
will simply go out into,
If you remember, we don't have products in the database, so I'll just
here.
bootstrap the
Right, I will-
database with a few
I'll show you the
products.
window here as well.
Create bootstrap action from
This is Service Center, and you can see within the Factory tab, there's eSpaces, extensions, and solutions.
Okay.
I could just as easily publish an eSpace or an extension
Excel.
here within Service Studio
Got it.
just by adding it, clicking publish, and all of that. But what this allows you to do is just download and install something very quickly without changing anything. And go to eSpaces, upload and publish an eSpace. Same thing with the extensions, as well as solutions. Now notice there's a couple of solutions that I've published already. The HTML, the PDF converter, network file system. If you open up each of those solutions, it will list out the components that are being installed. Now, I would recommend, as you are installing solutions, to be very careful. And let me show you an example. This is something where I actually I got bitten by it. If you install an entire solution,
Here's
there are dependent components
the product Excel file.
listed that are
Proceed.
already installed. Then the
Let's
solution
publish
file
and see this in
will
action. Well,
overwrite
just
that.
before,
So you have another option, which is instead of just uploading or instead of just publishing a solution, you can upload it and then choose which components within the solution to install manually. And so that's something I had to do with this component as well. So I just went in, clicked on something like this, basically disassociated it and published that specific component. You can also see all the dependencies that each one of those has. Right? So if you're not careful, you'll install a set of dependencies that might overwrite what you have already. So you want to be extra cautious about installing solutions. Now that being said, if you have a solution that you download, just show you this example. I went out to the Forge and downloaded the network file system just by clicking it. And you see that file that will be downloaded is this OSP file.
Got it. Yep. Okay.
So once you have that downloaded, just go to the solutions list, choose the file, and then find that OSP. In this case, it would be network file system. And then I can just upload it, and it will walk through, or upload or publish. If I upload it, it will put all the resources out there, but it simply won't publish the components. It won't compile anything for me. But I can do a one-click publish, and it'll push all of those components on there, which is exactly what I did in order to create these different components, such as this network file system component with these two, with this one extension and this one eSpace module, as well as its dependencies. We also have a concept of an application. This is more, it's more conceptual to help you when you are building something, basically group it together. All right, so as you're grouping components together, application one, you can potentially add multiple eSpaces and extensions into that application. And then as you deploy them, using a tool like Lifetime, it will deploy them together. It assumes that there's already dependencies between them, like referencing, as an example.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Okay?
All right. Yep. Thanks.
You're welcome.
doing this, let's get the product name as well. Done with this. Now let's go to the list, link it, bind the purchase ID, just add a preparation to the show page, drag and drop the purchase onto the show record. And now we will need to just add a preparation to the drag and that's why. So let's select the show record and bind the code, and we're good to go. And right click on the link, purchase edit. We're done with this show page instead of show. All right, let's take a look at the main flow. Everything seems to be working. Now let's go back to the show page and complete this screen. We now need to add a master detail. So with the list of products in this purchase. So let me just drag and drop the table, a table records here, and we're going to show the purchased products. Operation to get this data from. Important that this as it is the purchase parameter and also a condition. So the filter is done. Let's go to the show page and bind the source record list property to the output of the query, to the list, and that's it. Oh, by the way, again, we forgot to add an entity in the open the. Let me open the relationship menu to just quantity ID new, and then on top of show we'll in the database to get the purchase. So let's just then we'll do this and link it to the page. And now that we have a show page, we can just right click, we can just link this to the show page instead of the edit. Link to another destination, purchase, show. All right, let's take a look at the main flow.
Yep, I'm into that. Hey, is there a place to get some water?
Yeah, there's right next where we were at the coffee. There's one of these. There's these things, and there's a big jug of water. Hey, Sunil, are you still having trouble connecting to that OutSystems Bootcamp server?
everything seems to be working. Now let's go back to the show page and compare details records here, and we're going to show the purchased products, the purchase data from the database. So let's just do that. Purchased products, and we will need to get the purchased products for, and it's important that you stop a second to think about it, for the purchase ID. So if we leave this as it is, we will get all purchased products in the database, but we need to filter this by this ID. So I'm going to use a shortcut to change the query. Simply select the purchase ID parameter here, which is this one, and notice how the query is automatically updated to include to have a parameter and also a condition. So the filter is done. Let's go to the show page and bind the source record list property to the output of the query, to the list.
Sam, are you there?
And that's it. Oh, by the way, again, we forgot to add an entity in the query so that we can get the product name as well. So let's just open the query, right-click, and select the product. Going back to the show page. We are going to add another column here, so we can have a delete link that will allow us to delete products from the purchase. So let me just say, type delete, link to a new screen action, link to a new screen action, and this delete will basically execute the delete purchased product. Delete purchased product entity action, and we need to supply, of course, the ID coming from the table. List current purchased product ID, and this way we are allowing users to delete. Okay, we're almost there. All we need to add right now is a way for users to add products to this particular purchase, and that's what I'm going to do now with an edit record. So let me drag and drop the edit record here, and this edit record will basically allow me to add a purchase product to this list, right? So we will need, of course, a button, and let me label this add product. Add product. Double click to create the screen action. And this is the tricky part. Let's start by adding an assign node. An assign node that will assign the purchase ID to the edit record variable. So let me just double click, open the purchased product edit record, and let's go and check the record variable, and we will need to assign the purchase ID, because it's not in the form for the user to assign it. So double click and assign it to the input parameter of the page. Next, we will need to query the product that the user selected to get the price and then compute the total price. So let me drag and drop purchased product ID, and this way we are allowing users to delete. Okay, we're almost there. All we need to add right now all we need to add right now is a way for users to delete. We need to supply to a new screen action, link to a new screen action, to add another column, the product, going back to the an entity in the query so that we can get the product name as well. So let's just open the query, right click and select the product, going back to the show page, get the product name as well. So let's just open the query, right click and select the product, going back to the show page. We are going to add another column here, output of the query to the list. And that's it. Oh, by the way, again, we forgot to add an entity in the query so that we can get the product name as well. So let's just open the query, right click and select the product, going back to the show page. We are going. Let me do that real quick. Screen, and we want publish. Let's start with the first one. Let's publish and see this in action. Well, just be before doing this, let's take a look at the purchase show real quick. We need to remove, of course, the total price. From the form. Well, we should be good to go. Publish. Product. Using an entity action that will allow us to create a purchased product. Unit price. Just say that the total price equals quantity times the unit price that we get from this query. Product price. Okay? All right. After this, we need to add the record to the database. Using an entity action variable from the edit record. We need to remove, of course, the total price from. Proceed. Let's publish and see this in action. Well, just before doing this, let's take a look at the purchase show real quick. We need to remove, of course, the total price from the form. Well, we should be good to go. Publish. Open in browser. Okay, we have two purchases. Let's start with the first one. Oh, it seems that I forgot to set the show page as anonymous. Let me do that real quick. The show page set as anonymous. Publish. Okay, open in browser again. All right, let's click the first purchase and select a product. Let's say this screen, and we want 3 of these. Add product. There we have it, 3 of these. We can delete it. We can add it again. And let's say Finding Nemo 2. And if we try to add Finding Nemo again, we will get the database exception that is not allowing us, that is caused by the unique index. The unique index.
Yeah, I had some trouble setting up the booking, so you can, I can't kill, like, the duplicates. This is the only one that's actually good. The other ones are just empty, and I can't see them. Otherwise, I would have deleted them. So if you wipe those out, feel free.
So is there?
There's a good one with the logo over here. This is.
Oh, okay. So
Rest
that
is
is
just empty.
Got it. Yeah, the only reason you can't see them is if you create the application without creating and publishing these ways.
Yeah.
Then because of your permission level.
Yeah. No, I figured that out. Just whatever you want to do with them.
Good. Should be over now.
So I get